Let me read to you a passage from the 13th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, verses 47 to 53. It's the Gospel for Thursday after the 17th Sunday of Ordinary Time. St. Matthew writes, Jesus said, "Once again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fishermen pulled it up on the shore. Then they sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but threw the bad away. This is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." "Have you understood all these things?" Jesus asked. "Yes," they replied. He said to them, "Therefore, every teacher of the law who has been instructed about the kingdom of heaven is like the owner of a house who brings out of his storeroom new treasures as well as old." When Jesus had finished these parables, he moved on from there. That's from Matthew chapter 13, verses 47 to 53. Our Lord refers to the end. Do animals have a sense of the future, properly speaking? No. They act on instinct, which in some animals is possessed of an astonishing power and reach. They remember instinctively, but their memory is basically but a present impression. They do not recall the past as such, nor do they plan in view of what they perceive to be the future as such. Without their understanding the fact, their instincts lead them to make provision for their future needs. I make these passing observations only to bring out that man certainly comprehends the past, the present, and the future as such. In particular, he lives in the present with much preparation for the future. A child is born, and the parents and wider family ask, as was asked about John the Baptist, what will this child turn out to be? Hoping perhaps that the hand of the Lord will be with him. Luke chapter 1, verse 66. The future is of great importance to man's planning and considerations, and for how he lives the present and how he interprets the past. He should know that he must not live in the future nor in the past and neglect the duties of the present. Still, his present duties are to a large extent understood in the light of what he can foresee of the future. He is given years of education and training precisely in view of what will probably come in the future. All his life he is attending to present duties and preparing for the future. Strangely though, man can easily forget to plan for the real terminus of his existence, which is beyond his death. He knows he will die, though many forget even this. But what then? There is a broader question. History proceeds inexorably. Will mankind as a whole have its end? If so, what then? Broadly, among primal cultures there is a belief in some kind of existence after death. In the ancient Babylonian religion, it seems that the existence of a hereafter was accepted. In the Egyptian religion, the departed are called the living, and the judgment which each undergoes is described in the Book of the Dead. In the Vedic, the earliest historical form of Indian religion, it seems that there is a kingdom of the dead under the rule of Yama, with distinct realms for the good and the wicked. The good dwell in a realm of light and share in the feasts of the gods. The wicked are banished to a place of nethermost darkness. So we could go on. The point is that the future, the ultimate future, is of critical importance to man. Yet how can he come to know his ultimate future? The problem of the future has exercised many philosophers, including those who resolved to think without reference to divine revelation, and in particular to the ineffable revelation granted to man by Jesus Christ. But the golden possession of man is that knowledge of the future which has been granted by God. It is a knowledge that serves his ultimate salvation. Prior to Jesus Christ, the light of the world, the Old Testament transcended the religions of man in its doctrine of God and of man in relation to God. God is one. The universe is ruled by his wisdom, justice and omnipotence, and man is created by God in his own image and likeness and destined for friendship and fellowship with him. This was the basis for a revelation about the ultimate future. There is, though, a silence in many of its books on the subject of moral retribution after death, or at least a real vagueness. In them, religion seems preeminently an affair of this life, and retribution works out here on earth. Further, the future of the chosen people seems to overshadow that of the individual, though there is an advance to an assurance of personal resurrection from the dead, and we see evidence of this in various incidents of the Gospels, such as Martha's statement to Christ in John chapter 11 verse 24, just before he raised Lazarus. Without attempting here to refer to the gradual developments in Old Testament revelation in respect to the final end of man, a plain and lustrous climax of this process appeared with the teaching of Jesus Christ. And this brings us to the Gospel passage I read earlier, in which our Lord tells us in plain terms what is going to happen at the end. And it is the judgment of God on the wicked which our Lord chooses to emphasize here. The kingdom of heaven is like a net that was let down into the lake and caught all kinds of fish. When it was full, the fishermen pulled it up on the shore. Then they sat down and collected the good fish in baskets, but threw the bad away. This is how it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Matthew chapter 13 verse 47 to 53. That a particular judgment of each soul takes place at death is implied in many passages of the New Testament, such as in Luke chapter 16 verse 22, chapter 23 verse 43, and in Acts chapter 1 verse 25, and is stated in the teaching of the church. In Matthew chapter 25 verse 31 to 46, our Lord reveals the final judgment of God on all mankind. The point is that we know what the end will be in its broad outline. Christ and his church do not answer every question that idle curiosity may suggest, but there is given a clear, consistent, satisfying light on all that need be known and profitably understood regarding the issues of life and death for each of us personally, and the final end of the cosmos of which we are a part. We know what the last things will be. There will be death, God's judgment, then heaven or hell, with the mercy of a purification, purgatory, for those saved but not yet sufficiently holy and pure to be with God forever. Let us have the wisdom to live the present in the light of this future, then. This means seeking holiness of life, remembering that, as St. Paul writes, this is the will of God, your sanctification.